Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Kopidana Bhalava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Kopidana Bhalava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yamuna Dhiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari Yamuna Dhiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari Yamuna Dhiravarachari Jaya Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Kopidana Bhalava Grivadari Giridharadhari. Kopidana Balaba Giridharadhari, Jaya Giridharadhari. Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana, Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana. Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana, Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana. Yamunatira Varachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamunatira Varachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahangsa Paravarakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shriman. His Divine Grace Shri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthayavute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tenamane. Namaste Sarasvatundeve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Siddharne. Om Magyanativanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutle Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Parakamalam Shigaram Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakanzvitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Turbhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 19, the Lord begs charity from Bali Maharaj, Text 22. If I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied even with possessing one of the 7 islands consisting of 9 varshas. Even if I possessed one island, I would hope to get others. So in some previous verse, Prabhupada mentions about the islands, the planets floating in the air. But actually, we're not in one of those planets that are floating in the air, according to the Bhagavatam. We're on Jambudvip. And Jambudvip is one as Bali Maharaj, Vamanadeva is explaining. And Vamanadeva is quite a good authority, since he's God. So we have to take his word that we're on Jambudvip, in case you didn't know where you were. And we're in a little part of Jambudvip called Bhardvarsha, because there is different varshas as explained here. And I guess it says 9 varshas. Anyhow, we're in one of the 7 islands consisting of 9 varshas. So, Jambudvip, Plekshadvip, Sumantadvip, there are different types. There are different dweepers, and they're surrounded, they're islands, just like our island called Jambudvip is surrounded by salt water. We happen to be in Bhardvarsha, which is on the shore of the saltwater ocean. And we're only in one little part of Bhardvarsha, by the way. Bhardvarsha is much bigger than this little conception we have of these continents that we're supposedly that we're in. And then above, beyond the salt water, the same length as Jambudvip, I believe the next one is Plakshadvip. And then they're surrounded by oceans of milk. When we heard about the demigods and the demons churning the ocean of milk, that was the ocean of milk they were churning. And also there's an ocean of curd, and there's an ocean of liquor. So if you're a devotee and you like alcohol, you can take birth. And the island, and the Dvipa, which is next to the ocean of alcohol. So in this way, the universe is there. So there's a part of the universe which is like a flat. That's the part we're in. And then there's the planets above this flat part of it. And there are actually planets like Venus and Saturn and Jupiter. They're actually floating in the air. And of course the sun is also revolving around the mountain. Around a mountain that the Loka mountains which surround our part that we're inhabiting of the universe, because beyond that there is no light. The sun doesn't shine because the mountains are so tall they block all the light. And then there's some part beyond the mountain, I believe it's Loka mountain, where there's only darkness. Anyhow, it's quite a geography. Whether we believe it or not makes no difference, because we're not going to, right now we're on wherever we are. We're just trying to chant Hare Krishna and take prasadam. that's as far as our realization is probably going to go for a while. And here's Vamadev continuing. I have heard that the all-powerful kings like Maharaj Prithu and Maharaj Gaya achieved proprietorship over the 7 dweepers. They could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. Of course, Prithu was an incarnation of Krishna, so this Vamadev is just giving some examples. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. Oh, actually, this is the verse we're supposed to read, I think. Yeah. Yadrichayo papanena santushto vartate sukham na santutash trivir lokar ajitatmo pasaditai yadrichayo papanena santushto vartate sukham na santushtas tribhir lokar ajitatmo pasaditai yadrichayo papanena santushto vartate sukham santushtashrivir lokar ajitatmo pasaditai yadrichayo papanena Ladies. Yadrichaya, as offered by the Supreme Authority according to one's karma. Upapanena, by whatever is obtained. Santushtaha, one should be satisfied. Vartate, there is. Sukham, happiness. Na, not. Asantushta, one who is dissatisfied. Trivi lokai, even by possessing the 3 worlds. Ajita atma, one who cannot control his senses. Upasaditai, even though obtained. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. Person who is not self-controlled will not be happy even with possessing the 3 worlds. Purport. If happiness is the ultimate goal in life, one must be satisfied with the position in which he is placed by providence. This instruction is also given by Prahlad Maharaj. Sukham aindriyakam dait. Sukham aindriyakam daitya. Dehi yogena dehinam sarvatra labhyate daivad yata dukkam ayatnataha. My dear friends, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Bhagavatam 7.6.3. This philosophy is perfect in regard to obtaining happiness. Real happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita 6.21. Sukham atyandikam yattad buddhi grayam atindriyam beti yatrana chaivalyam sitas chalati tatvataha. In the spiritually joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys oneself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. One has to perceive happiness by the super senses. The super senses are not the senses of the material elements. Every one of us is a spiritual being, aham brahmasmi, and every one of us is an individual person. Our senses are now covered by material elements, and because of ignorance, we consider the material senses that cover us to be our real senses. The real senses, however, are within the material covering. Dehino sminyata dehe. Within the covering of the material elements are the spiritual senses. Sarva padi vinirmuktvam tat paradvena nirmalam. When the spiritual senses are uncovered, by these senses we can be happy. Satisfaction of the spiritual senses is thus described. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti Uchate. When the senses are engaged in devotional service to Rishikesh, then the senses are completely satisfied. Without the superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy his material senses, but happiness will never be possible. One may increase the ambitions for sense gratification and even achieve what he desires for the gratification of his senses, but because this is on the material platform, he will never achieve satisfaction and contentment. According to Brahminical culture, one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor and should cultivate spiritual consciousness. Then he will be happy. The purpose of Krishna consciousness movement is to spread this understanding. People who do not have scientific spiritual knowledge mistakenly think that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement are escapists, trying to avoid material activities. In fact, however, we are engaged in real activities for obtaining the ultimate happiness in life. If one is not trained to satisfy the spiritual senses and continues in material sense gratification, he will never obtain happiness that is eternal and blissful. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore recommends Tapo Divyam Putraka Yena Sattvam Shudyat Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Tunantam. One must practice austerity so that his existential position will be purified and he will achieve unlimited blissful life. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Sadharane. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has gone over what is the different states of consciousness of the conditioned soul and the liberated soul. And in the 5th chapter, Krishna had said, what was the verse before? Tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gajantya puna arvitim, gyanani duta kalmashaha. Jnanena tu tad agyanam, yeshanashitam atmanaha, tesham adityavaj jnanam, prakashiti tad param. When, however, one is enlightened by the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. In other words, if we become even a little conscious of Krishna, then we'll see that our present consciousness is not correct. And what's the verse before that? Before Jnanena Tad Agyanam Yesha Nashtam Atmana. So that's must be 17, and 16 is oh, 15. Before that. So we could actually give a whole class just in each chapter, because they're all complete within themselves. One verse follows another, and they're all important to understand the verses. For instance, previous to that, Krishna says, Nadate kasuchet papam na papam sukritim vibhum agyanena vritam agyanam tena muyanti jantava. Nor is the Supreme Spirit assuming anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that our real problem, is if we have a problem, if we think we have a problem, is because our desires are misdirected. That's all. For the soul, there's actually no problem because the soul is eternal. Anyone who's eternal, how can he have a material problem? It's just some idea that we have a problem. That's not saying that the material body doesn't have a problem. The material body is a problem in itself. Anyone who has a material body, the body is a problem. But not necessarily for the soul. Just like if you're watching a movie and the hero gets shot, it's really not your problem. It's probably not even the problem of the hero in the movie. But anyhow, you may identify with it and you feel bad. That's the problem. Because you're identifying something that's not true, still you're feeling bad. Feeling bad is the problem. Or if the hero in the movie gets rich, you don't get rich. You walk out of the movie in the same amount of money. You have less money than you walked into the movie theater with. How rich the hero became. But you feel good. So that feeling is there. So similarly, because we're feeling in relation to this body, therefore we're attached to it. We want to feel good rather than bad. It's very simple. And the body says, if you do this, the mind says, if you do this, then you'll feel good. And if you do this or if you do that, then you'll feel bad. And so we're desiring to do what will make us feel good, even temporarily, even if we know at the end it's going to make us feel bad, but we have to have a little of that feeling of feeling good. Because the living entity by nature is pleasure-seeking. In the spiritual world, no one's looking for trouble. And in the material world, no one's actually looking for trouble either, although there's trouble to be found everywhere in the material world. So, to actually properly utilize our desires requires knowledge. In other words, a man convinced against his will of the same opinion still. We may restrain from sense gratification or from whatever we may consider to be detrimental to our well-being, but unless we get a higher taste, we can't do that for very long. Unless we can understand things properly, not just superficially, but more deeply, then we can't really stop from simply following the dictation of our senses, because at least we know if we follow their dictation, they'll leave us alone for some time. Otherwise, when we try to stop doing something, the mind will always remind us, are you sure you don't want to press that button? Are you sure you don't want to press it? 5 minutes later, are you sure you don't want to press it? Okay, I'll press it, just leave me alone. I'll press it, whatever. I always wanted to see what happened anyhow. So the mind will constantly nag us, and we're curious anyhow, because we're always thinking, well, yeah, what is it? The mystique of sense gratification is always there. Maya creates a mystique that sense gratification is something more than it actually is. Only if one actually becomes conscious of Krishna, one forgets about these things. And eventually, on a certain platform, Maya may come to attract us, and we still have our memory. We haven't lost our memory, we haven't lost our intelligence, and we're just not interested. We don't have to tell Maya, Maya, leave me alone, I'm not interested. Really, you're not interested? Why aren't you interested? As soon as we start engaging in a conversation with Maya, then Maya will start having a reciprocal conversation with us, and eventually we'll get absorbed in Maya and be convinced by her. Only when we become actually detached from Maya, by realizing, number one, that there's something better, and number two, we've been through this before, and it's always given the same result. So why should I bother going through it again? Sure, Maya. Give us your spiel again. I heard it so many times. All right. Everyone has to be engaged, and Krishna is also engaging you. So go ahead. But I'm not interested. So, nadate kasuchit papam. Krishna is not responsible for what we're desiring. He gives us good intelligence so we can desire properly. But if we desire what Maya is offering us, then that's our free will, that's our choice. We can't blame our conditioned life on Krishna because he's giving us free choice, free will. It's up to us to properly utilize it. And after misusing our free will, we get a bad reaction. We can't blame Krishna. Krishna is trying to give us the proper information. Like a person sitting on the branch of a tree and he's sawing the branch off. And someone comes along and says, "Sir, if you keep on sawing the branch, the tree is going to fall down. The branch is going to fall down." "Oh, come on, you know, who believes you, you know? You don't read the newspapers, you know. This is Soar the Tree week." So the person keeps on sawing the branch, and eventually the branch breaks and he falls down. Then he runs after the man and says, Sir, wait. Please wait. You must be an astrologer. Can you tell me my future?" So it's obvious what's going to happen. We already know what's going to happen. And someone comes along and says, "Don't do that. You know, this is going to happen." "Oh, come on, you're so pessimistic." And then it happens. "Oh my God, he must be able to see the future." Because it's the same thing over and over again. It's not like there's a whole lot of variety. Just like every year, something like summer comes, and then the fall comes, and then the winter, then the spring. Every year. So you don't have to be an astrologer to figure out what the next season is, approximately. Therefore, after some years in the material world, one knows it's the results of the work. If he has any intelligence, if one gets entering into the darkest regions of existence, then of course one doesn't know what's next. We've only heard about how in hell the Yamadutas take people and they put them on trees which have made out of thorns and drag their bodies down the tree. Rather unpleasant experience. So one may not believe it, but if one enters into the darkest regions of existence, then one may get practical experience of what that means. On the other hand, for the most part, within our limited realm of experience, we know what material existence means, more or less, to some extent. So something about the pains and something about the pleasures of material existence. Spiritual existence we don't know about as much as we know about material existence. But therefore Krishna says, if we become a little aware of Krishna through the process of chanting the holy names or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, somehow or another Krishna reveals himself to us a little bit, then we realize, wow, there's something else besides sense gratification. That's called enlightenment. That's what's called samskaras are meant for, to give a little taste that there's something beyond just our ordinary existence. And then Krishna says, Tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gacchanyapana avritim jnananiduta kamasha. Woman's tad buddhiyas. What does buddhiyas mean? Well, Gabriela. Yes, buddhya, tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas. What does atmanas mean? Lalita Govinda. What is atma? Yeah, it's either the body, the mind, or the soul. Tad buddhiyas, tad nishtas. Nishta? What is nishta? This is a little... Usually we don't use it in this sense. It means faith. One's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith. Tad buddhiyas, tad atma, tad nishtas, tad parayana. What does parayana mean? Important word. Narayana parayana. What does parayana mean? It means refuge, where we're taking shelter. Is anyone taking shelter of anything right now? Yes, you're taking shelter of the wall. Some of us taking shelter of a chair. We're finding shelter somehow. We have our clothes as part of our shelter. We're living in this building, which is our shelter. Then we have our clothes for our shelter. And then we have the body for the shelter of the soul. So we have so many shelters. So, tat parayana. Krishna can also be a shelter. If we learn how to take shelter of Krishna, he can also shelter us, and most importantly, he can shelter us from illusion. So we can realize that we're on the spiritual platform, that we don't need material shelters. When we get Krishna's shelter, then we can understand we don't need any other shelter. And when we don't have Krishna's shelter, then we imagine we need so many other shelters for our protection and happiness. Tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayana. Gachan yapada avritim. Gachanti, what does that mean? Bhakti Marco, what is? Yeah, to go. What's the word in Slovenia? Slovene, to go. What's that? Iti, like Slavic language, iti. Russian, iti also. Different, probably. Well, in Russian they have a number of words for go. They have chadit and et, depending if you're going one direction or... What's that? Hodi, yeah. So the same, one direction or multiple directions. Anyhow, it's gachanti, to go. So one goes where? He goes avritim. Tad buddhiyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayana. Gachanya punar. What does punara mean? Again. Let's see if I got that right. Gajanya punar avritim. Punar. Apunar. Actually, it's not Gachan apunar avritim. He doesn't go again to avritim, to the material existence. So to liberation. Apunar avritim means liberation. Jnana nirduta kamashaha. And by this knowledge, one becomes cleansed of all kamashaha. Sin, but Prabhupada translates this sin as misgiving. In other words, when we're separated from Krishna, then all we have is misgivings. Why? Because we wind up in the material world, and no matter where we are in the material consciousness, no matter where we are in material consciousness, there's something wrong. Only when we're deep in deep sleep, there's no problem. And then we wake up to so many problems. First problem is getting out of bed. If we're attached to anything, we're attached to the bed when we wake up. I can't. first painful thing we have to give up is the bed. And the only way of getting out of it is by jnana, real knowledge, that we're not this body and that we have a relation with Krishna. And then kamacha, then when we realize that we're not this body, and as much as we realize we have a relation with Krishna, who's all blissful, all loving, all merciful, then all our misgivings go away. If we come in contact with someone who's all merciful, all blissful, all loving, all attractive, it's very hard to have too many misgivings. When we look in the mirror and see our wonderful body, we always see something wrong. Wait a second, you're not supposed to grow old. You're not supposed to become diseased. You're not supposed where did that dot come from? Go away. There's something always about some kind of misgivings about this body. And if we have no misgivings about this body, then we must be crazy. We must be completely in the illusory energy. Oh my God, how wonderful, how beautiful, how perfect. Even God is envious. Then we're deeply in trouble. So then proceed straight on the path of liberation. Gachanya puna arvitim. Gyan nirduta. Cleanse. So when we become cleansed of all these misconceptions by coming in contact with Krishna, then we want to go back to the spiritual world again. Or at least come to work in spiritual consciousness to always be with Krishna. And when we're not with Krishna, when we don't take Krishna so seriously, then we're always being disturbed by our senses. They never give up. And there's so many varieties of disturbance. We're demanded by the tongue to eat more, and then the stomach complains that you ate too much. And then the mind becomes disturbed. We try to pacify the mind. Okay, I won't eat so much. And then someone comes along and says something nasty, and we become angry. So the senses are always willing to cause us some kind of disturbance. And we're spending a whole life trying to satisfy the disturbance of the mind and senses. It's like that boy trying to stop the dike in Amsterdam. They have dikes not in Amsterdam, but in Holland, to keep the waters out from the sea. So one boy found that the dike had a hole in it, so he put his finger in it. But then another dike came out, another hole. Water came out. So he put his other hand, his fingers, his legs, everything. So we're entangled trying to stop. This problem comes up, we try to fix it, and some other problem comes up. I know how expert we become at solving problems. The material nature just throws a bigger problem at us, so we can try and solve that one. And we're proud how expert I am at solving problems. We don't realize we're just uselessly solving problems because there's no end to them. Not that we shouldn't try to solve problems, but we should also try to solve the real problem, is forgetfulness of Krishna, by not acting in Krishna consciousness. So here Vamanadeva is explaining that. We should take him seriously because he's God and he knows everything. So if he says so, we should agree. So I'll stop there thinking, any questions or comments? Yes. Didn't have time to get to the verses I wanted. Bhagavad Gita is such an amazing book.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for lecture, Guru Maharaj. It's something I'm not sure I understand. Your Holiness was saying Krishna is not interfering with our free will. And I don't understand this free will is above or the three modes of nature who are coordinating us.
Could be. It could be above the three modes.
This is something I don't understand.
Well, there's a lot of things I don't understand too. That's why we ask questions, so know what to understand. When we're not in Krishna, when we have no idea, of course everyone in civilized society has some idea about God consciousness, because there have been saints who've come and given some knowledge. Otherwise we'd just be barbarians. Practically we are barbarians, anyhow, but we're a little above barbarians, because we have some knowledge. So that some knowledge usually gives us a choice. We have a choice to do something barbaric or do something which is more or less considered civilized. So in modern society, we have a choice between acting barbarically, which people will criticize, and acting so-called civilized. Although the line is not so clear anymore, as clear as it used to be. On the other hand, when we have transcendental knowledge, when we understand that we can act in devotional service to Krishna, or even the mode of goodness, for instance, we're sitting down to take prasadam and Krishna reminds us that we're supposed to wash our hands. And we say, well, the bathroom's at least, 30 seconds away, it's too much, I'm hungry. Besides that, I washed my hand yesterday, I'm sure it's clean, it's still clean. So I just let it pass, they'll be all right. I mean, I'm sure I have a lot of friendly germs on my hand too. So Krishna is saying, no, you should wash your hand, that's what they told you, before you eat, you should wash your hand. So then when there's a fight, it's too far away. And then, all right, Krishna, stop bothering me, I'll go and wash my hand. So then we wash our hand. So that's using our free will. Finally, we've surrendered to Krishna. But generally speaking, Krishna won't bother us so much. He says, why don't you wash your hand? And he says, no way, Krishna, leave me alone. Okay, I'll leave you alone. And Maya says, yeah, you got rid of that guy, no problem. He's always causing you so much difficulty.
Okay, so we are using our buddhi, our intelligence, and we overcome the three modes of nature who are suggesting what to do or give us alternatives.
Overcome? Yeah, well, actually what we do is we just ignore what they're saying, we accept what Krishna is saying, rather than ignore what Krishna is saying and accept whatever our minds is telling us. As far as overcoming, when Krishna sees that, then he reveals himself within our heart. He gives us more and more intelligence, and eventually he reveals himself so those modes go away. That suggestion goes away. We're not bothered anymore. Krishna sees we're not going to be bothered by it, so Krishna just withdraws it.
Next level.
Yeah, and then something else comes along. Then Maya says, wow, you're so pure and so advanced. You deserve this. Yeah, right. Well, I agree. Then the next thing to deal with.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna. So in daily life, I often have experience that I know by intelligent what is my duty and that I should do particular service, but I don't like to do it. And let's just say I have choice to sit, spend some time and try to convince mind, or I should go immediately to do a service with angry mood. So both of that is not very.
Yeah,
so what should I do actually?
Don't do it with an angry mood.
Sorry?
Do it with an angry mood. Because at least you know that you're angry. Obviously you know you're a fool being angry. And if you do the service, then Krishna will give you some intelligence. So you'll give up your anger as useless.
So Krishna will help if I just decide to do it?
Yeah, he'll help because you decided at least to do the right thing. Rather than serve your anger, you ignored it and you did it.
Yeah, probably I would not be angry all the time.
No,
when I'm doing service,
when we do the service, then we'll remember Krishna and our anger will go away. Anger is just Maya's trick stop us from doing the service.
And it is not so long. It disappear very quickly.
It may disappear unless you're really attached to it, because you really don't want to do the service. Therefore you get more angry, I'm doing it, Krishna's torturing me, I hate Krishna. But if you're reasonable, you're doing it because, you accept devotional service as the aim of life, then the anger will go away.
Thank you.
Anything else? Kvala, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Why is that?